you have them realize well, that belief isn't true. And there's actually a bunch of other beliefs that could serve you even more impactfully. And yet it also didn't mean that she needed to change her career in order to do more of that work, although it's an option that she had that she didn't even think was available. Welcome back to the Name Your Numbers show presented by the Investor Mindset. My name's Steven Pesavento, and today I'm excited to have Knolly Williams in the studio. How you doing today, Knolly?
Steven, I'm super excited to be here, man. Name your number, baby. Let's go.
Man, I'm excited to talk to you because I feel like you're a guy you've built a number of businesses, you've had a lot of success, and yet you've also created a life that you're really excited about living, one that you've truly designed. And, at the core, naming your number is really all about getting clear on what you want from your life and then understanding, drawing that line in the sand. What do you actually need to earn to be able to live that life, and then going out and creating it? And
That's
so,
right.
Right now, what I want to talk about today is, I'm in a place where, I'm having a lot of success. I'm making some great money. I'm helping a lot of people. And yet I feel this conflict. And so I want to talk a little bit about that conflict that I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And get some insights from you, because I feel like a lot of people are going through this at some point in their life or will in the future. And that conflict that I'm feeling is that I've built a business that the core focus is making money, making other people money, making our team money, making the company money. And it's really fun. It's been a fun journey. Done really good with it. And yet at the same time, I'm noticing the more that I connect to spirit, the more that I connect to who I truly am and what my purpose is, that I'm really here to make an impact, that I'm here to be able to help people get what they need and get where they want in life. And we definitely do that in this business. But I'd love to talk to you a little bit about how you've gone through the process personally, discovering what your purpose is, discovering how you can help other people, because I know that's something you're really passionate about, and how you've balanced that between the drives of business and capitalism and making a lot of money, which is a lot of fun, and then the drive towards really helping make a difference in the world and in people's lives.
Steven, that's such a big topic, but it really is my favorite topic. I've been teaching since the age of 18, and I've actually taught the Bible longer than I've taught any other subject. Now I'm so enamored the last probably 7 to 10 years in quantum physics, which is a lot of what I love to teach, mindset. And but I also love to make money. And I started making money at the age of 12, and I learned that I loved it at the age of 12. Back then, I would subscribe to Small Business Opportunities magazine. And none of my other friends were subscribing to this magazine, and so I never let on that I was a subscriber, or that I had that I was subscribing to it. But I've always been enamored with both, helping others. Well, actually, it was really about making money initially. That's all it was, and eventually, I came to realize that we're actually here for 3 reasons. Number one, we're here to be. We're human beings. Not human doings. We're here to have an experience, human beings. So we're here to be. Secondly, we're here to do. We have a mission. We have a purpose. And then thirdly, we're here to give. We're here to share all the knowledge and information that we have with other people. And I really believe we can do it all. I don't think that there's okay, you can make money over here and you can give back and share over there. I think it can all be one and the same if you set the right outcome from the beginning, or you set the right intention. But it took me a while, Steven, to really, because I was at the same point in my 30s. I'd made my first $1 million when I was 29 years old. I had a very successful company. I was making $150,000 a month. And I bought a 7-bedroom home, 6,000 square feet, when I was 26 years old. I mean, I was on it, man. But it was just all about stacking, stacking. And even though it was ministry based, but the money kind of overshadowed a lot of it. And I didn't teach other people what I did. I didn't teach them what I knew. I didn't teach them what I learned. And it was very empty. And now when I coach people, I say, I can teach you how to make $1 million or $1 million a year, or however much you want. but you'll just be another miserable millionaire. What
Mhm.
you really want to learn is your purpose, your identity, who you are, why you're here. And then you want to build your business on top of that. I call it hone your superpower. That's the title I've given it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think there's something so powerful in that, because I've gone through a similar journey and come to realize, the gifts, the superpowers, as you call them, that I have.
Yeah.
And I love
Sure.
that feeling of helping other people realize what their purpose is, what they're
Sure.
actually here for. And
Right.
yet what's interesting is what attracts people into my world is they're looking to make a change in their life. They're looking to make more money. They're looking to get out of the job that they don't love to do something that they really do.
Sure.
And so it always, for me in particular, it's always been attracted by, that carrot of making a
Right.
lot of money. And so
course.
sometimes what I've noticed is that can muddy the waters. It's like the impact is the real driving force, yet the money is the thing that's actually attracting people in, wanting to make that change. When
Yeah.
you're working with a client yourself, how would you advise that they, navigate that? Because I feel like a lot of people, they want to make an impact. They want to do something meaningful. They want
Yeah.
to have a phenomenal family, yet they have this feeling that it needs to be all about the money because they're so focused on safety and scarcity and security.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting that the more money you make and as you start to learn the principles of money and the science behind making money, you start to learn that it's so easy to make money. I mean, once you're on that side where you understand it fundamentally at the quantum level, there's almost nowhere that I could go, I believe, and not make money, like with what I've learned. And I know you feel the same way. And so that piece of it, but when you're coming from a standpoint of lack, and this is why I teach my students to be debt free in as much as possible, because if you're not debt free, lack will dictate your decisions. And when you make decisions from a standpoint of lack, those decisions can ultimately turn out to be very poor in the grand scheme of what you should or could be doing. You hit it on the head, Steven, at the beginning. It's all about finding out who you are. What is your superpower? To give you an example, I used to watch now it's the Avengers. It's kind of the, more popular one. But it was the Justice League when I was growing up. Okay. It was Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and others that would fight crime together. And they were pretty badass by themselves. But when you put them together, forget about it. However, each one had a particular skill and the others had other skills, right? So there's certain situations you wouldn't send Superman into. If there was kryptonite around or something. Now, if I had a stealth mission, I'm not going to send the Incredible Hulk, because, if I'm on the Avengers, because he doesn't know how to be stealthy. I'm going to send Ant-Man or somebody that knows how to maneuver. But because Hulk, all he knows how to do is smash stuff, which is a great skill. But that may not be the skill that's needed. And so when you come to understand who you are, that's the key. That's the main thing. And then you build your business on top of that. Now, not only do we have a rocking business, but we have a very, very happy life. From what I've observed, my belief is that happiness is a byproduct of living your purpose. So you can have all the money in the world. I mean, I made my first $1 million over 20 years ago, and I made many, many million since. But if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do in this realm, then I'm not going to be happy at the same time while I'm making millions. And you can do both. So, but it has to start with, who you are at the very core. And honestly, once you know who you are, your why becomes very apparent. Your why becomes very obvious.
Yeah. And it takes that self-awareness. It takes that self-discovery to get to the point, to being able to be clear on who you are, what your gift is, and what you can do. And the reason that this relates to investing, the reason this relates to creating the life you want, is because you can go out and make the investments. You can go buy real estate. You can invest in private equity. You can do the different things that are going to allow you to be able to be financially free. But if you're not in alignment, if you don't know what you want and why you want it, and what your purpose is and what's actually driving you, you're going to end up getting to that point where you create all the things you thought you wanted, but because you didn't know yourself or you weren't clear on what you actually wanted, that there's going to be kind of a missing feeling that'll be inside.
Yeah. And it's basically disillusion, disenchantment. You'll be disappointed. And at the end of the day, there'll be a life of regret. You know, Bronnie Ware, she wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she was a palliative care nurse I think in Australia. She worked only with people in their last 12 weeks of life, their last 12 weeks of life. And she worked with hundreds and hundreds, and if not thousands of these people. And she came to understand that there were 5 things that they regretted as they were taking their last breath on their deathbed. And the number one regret, Steven, is so incredible. The number one regret that people had is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life that was true to myself, not the life others wanted for me. And most of you listening right now, or some of you, or many of you, or maybe even you right now listening, you're living a life that someone else designed for you. It's not the life that you designed. Maybe, you know, your parents wanted you to go to a certain school, so you went to that school. And as a result, you met the person you married, and then that job opened up over there. Now, there's nothing that can't be unraveled, and things can work out and can work for your good, even if it was not what you ultimately probably would have been the best choice for you. But when you live a life by design instead of by default, you live a better life. Now, listen to the second biggest regret of those on their deathbed. Number one, I wish I had lived my life, figured out who I am and lived who I am, my purpose. And number 2, Steven, the number 2 regret of all is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And that's one of the big reasons I wrote 3 hours a day, because entrepreneurs have to know that there is an easier way to do business. Now, the last thing I want to say on that is, don't get the idea that, because there can be fear here where it's like, well, what if I discover that, you know, I like doing this, and then I'm totally going to go in some other field where I make no money. That's not really how it works. It's basically what people don't understand is you're confusing what you do with who you are. What you do is not who you are. And I've said this for years that, you know, I've been who I am authentically when I was in the music business, did that for 10 years, was very successful. I did it, and I started that company when I was 23. At 33, I got in the real estate business and was very successful, sold over 1,000 homes in my first 10 years, became the number 1 solo real estate agent in Austin, Texas, out of almost 10,000 agents. There was 9,800 when the Austin Business Journal came out with the report. And I was number 1 in the city. So I was very successful there. I got into in the seminar business and very successful in that. And the reality is, I was still doing the same thing. If you put me in plumbing, selling plumbing parts, I'm going to be who I am doing that. So you can take who you are. What you do is just a conduit for who you are. Okay. So don't get the idea that you're going to have to switch professions or do something else. You might, but most likely, you know, unless you've made some really bad choices, you'll probably be able to kind of stay where you are and just sort of purpose your life. You know, we can get into how to do that as well, you know.
Yeah, I think we will, because I think it's really powerful. But what I'm really taking away, and what I hope that other people are hearing, is that once you get clear on who you are, right? And part of naming your number is actually getting clear on what you want from your life, what are your gifts, what you can do with those gifts. Then what you are able to then create in your life is a place where you're in so much better alignment. You know, I had a great coaching call with a client yesterday, and she was very successful. She was making a couple $100,000 a year, and yet she felt like she wasn't. And she felt like she was drawn towards doing more impact work. She enjoyed the volunteering that she was doing. And she had this belief that it was impossible for her to do impactful work and make money doing it.
Right.
And through the process of what always happens when you're coaching somebody is you have them realize that belief isn't true. And there's actually a bunch of other beliefs that could serve you even more impactfully. And yet it also didn't mean that she needed to change her career in order to do more of that work. Although it's an option that she had that she didn't even think was available.
Right.
And so what I'm curious for you, Knolly, is you're a guy who's been very intentional. You've created a life by design. Have you named your number, drawn that line in the sand about how much you need to earn in order to create the life you want? And more importantly than talking about the number, what did that do for you when you made that decision that this was the line? And what came from that? What focus came from that?
Yeah, so I've been teaching this for so long, and I actually call it a monthly nut. And this is a concept that I've been teaching for years and years and years. And I ask people, what's your monthly nut? Because, you know, what you're talking about is, I'll give you an example. So when I was 45, I paid off my house. I was completely debt free. All other debt had already been paid, and I paid off my house. So I'm like, okay, I did it. I did, you know, and I'm yelling I'm debt free, and I'm all excited and everything. But then the bills kept coming in. So I said, wait a minute, there's residual bills. Maybe I need to create residual income. And that's when I started to realize that, you know, you can be debt free, which is great. It's a great space to be in. I love it. And also there's another level, which is what you teach, Steven, is like your name, your number. So my number, you know, honestly, and I've made so much more than this, but 20,000 a month for me is comfort. Okay. I'm already there. It's residual. If I literally, I'm not going to do this, but if I go to Europe for 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, I've got that residual income coming in every single month. And I don't have to work for a living anymore. But now my new number is 40,000. I say, why not? 10,000 a week sounds better to me. And actually, I've been in a place where I was making 150,000 a month, but I had all these expenses. I had lots of overhead. You know, I had 14 employees, 18 artists on my label. I was spending 160 with making 150. So now my number's 40,000 a month. And so I'm working toward that number now. I don't need that much, but what I've always taught people is if you can have your monthly nut covered, just your basic expenses, then all the other income that you create can go toward, you know, your overhead. And I actually teach it in my book how to do that. You have to create other. This is getting a little off track, but a lot of people don't realize that the money that you seek is all around you. For example, people sometimes when I'm coaching, they say, well, I can't afford that. You know, I can't afford to hire someone. You tell me to delegate. I say, well, the better question is, how can I afford it? Not I can't afford it. When you say I can't afford it, that's an affirmation that goes straight to your subconscious mind, and it continues to program and run in that program. Okay, we can't afford it. He says we can't afford this, so let's not even create. Let's not create the ideas that will create the income. So to give an example, when I hire a VA, let's say I'm paying a VA in the Philippines $1,000 a month to do video editing. Let's just an example. So I do have a video editor that does video editing for me. And I have a group of entrepreneurs, and I went to them and I said, hey, would you like video editing? Because I don't need the guy full time. It's $300 a month. He'll do any video editing you want. And I got 5 people to sign up. That's $1,500 a month coming in. I'm paying him $1,000. So all of my video, and it takes him about 20% of his time to do the work for those 5. And the rest of the 80%, he can do all my stuff. So if you're creative and you can think of ways to not have to pay people out of your own pot or create an additional revenue stream for your VA or whoever you leverage, you just got to be smarter about the way you do it. But yeah, that's my monthly number.
Well, it's getting out of the box. And that's one of the things that's so powerful about your new book, 3 hours a day. Where can people find that? I know it just was released recently, Knolly.
It's actually in Barnes and Noble. I walked into Barnes and Noble in Austin and grabbed it. It's on Amazon. Kindle version just was released, and the Audible is coming out very, very soon as well. So it's, for me, I work 3 hours a day, but that's the ultimate. When you look at there's a lot of scientific studies that have been done, And when you look at even people that work like employees, the study has shown that their average productivity in a day is about 3 hours, even if they clock in 8 hours. We already know that if you give somebody 6 hours to do something, or 7 hours, or 8 hours, or 3 hours, they'll get it done. Okay. And there's a lot of experiments that have been done on that. And what I've come to discover is that 90% of what most entrepreneurs do, most of my coaching clients, whether they be a chiropractor, a real estate agent, dentist, doesn't matter. 90% of the things that they do in their company are not really moving the needle. The 10% of what they do is what moves the needle 90%. So I say, focus only on the 10%, or get yourself to a point where you can only have to focus on the 10%, and all the other stuff, putting out fires, navigating through the weeds, maintaining status quo, all that stuff will be done by others. But initially you want to incorporate 3 hours a day into your current workday, so there's only two things that a person should be doing during, and this is kind of going can we go on this real quick side road?
I'd love to. Let's do it.
Yeah. So what I discovered is that, when you start coaching people, and you know this, Steven, because you've coached thousands of entrepreneurs as well, you start to realize that all these entrepreneurs only have two problems, and your business will only ever have two problems. It's interesting because a lot of times we think, man, my business has all these problems, I got to solve all these issues. But really, you only ever have two problems. Number one, you don't have enough money. Number two, you don't have enough time. It's one of the two, or both. Now, if your business has a money problem, that's cash flow. That's a cash flow issue. And then also future wealth. Then what you should be focusing on are two big picture priorities, only two, and that's generating leads and closing sales, closing appointments. Those are really the only two things that you should like, if you focus only on those two things, your business would grow. Okay. And if you gave up all the other stuff that you're doing, your business would still grow. Now, once you start becoming real good and you start generating business, and you become, maybe top salesperson in your office, or, the top chiropractor in your city, or whatever, then you're going to have a time problem, because unless you clone yourself, you're not going to be able to, you're basically going to run out of the ability to continue to serve. And then you've got to duplicate. So that at that point, you have a leverage issue. Time problem is solved through leverage. And what you'll be focused on, your two big picture priorities, will be branding. You'll be the brand ambassador. You might not be putting hands on people and doing the adjustments anymore. You'll have maybe a team of people doing that. And you'll be on podcasts. You'll be doing your YouTube channel. You'll be doing all the other stuff that you're doing to build your brand. And then you'll be focused on leadership, branding and leadership. You'll be leading your team. Because the reality is, Steven, the bigger your business grows, the less you should have to do. The bigger you can grow it, the less you should have to work.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about realizing this is that what it does, Knolly, and what you've done is such a good job in your book of really outlining, is simplifying the path to success. What is it that's going to move the needle, right? You can apply this in your personal life. You can apply it in your business. Yeah. What is it, the thing that you want? And then what is going to be the most valuable use of your personal time to end up getting there, right? You need more time. Well, then we need to hire some people. We need to get you focused on the things that are best for you. You need more money. Well, you need to be focused on sales and leads, right? And when you simplify things down to that path, and you have that core focus, that's where really big changes start happening.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, many entrepreneurs, including like this one that you said is very successful, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll fill their day up with busyness. because it just makes the ego feel good. Like, I'm busy, I'm working, I'm doing something. But we all know that busyness doesn't equals business. And what I do with my coaching clients is I say, hey, I want you for the next 3 days to chronicle for me every single thing that you do during the day. Go, oh, I'm working 14 hours. Oh, I'm on my hustle. Okay, let me see what you're doing. And I guarantee you that 90%, sometimes 80%, if they're really efficient, but for the, typically it's 90% of the things that they do every day, they're not actually generating, they're not income producing activities. is what I call. An income producing activity is an activity that creates fresh and immediate new cash flow or future wealth. Okay. If it doesn't do one of those two things, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, let's say you take on a new client. Okay. If, I'm going to give an example of my massage therapist. She wanted to learn my system and I taught her, and she was working by herself at a chiropractor's office, and she charged by the hour. So it was like this much for a 2-hour massage, this much for 90 minutes. By the way, I'm the 2-hour. I used to do 1 hour, and then she said, "Have you ever tried a 2-hour massage?" I said, "No, I've never even considered doing that." I've been hooked ever since. I mean, it's la la land.
So much deeper, right?
Oh, it's just incredible. Anyway. I digress. So I taught her my system. Took her a few weeks to learn it, and within just a few months, she had hired 3 people. They were she basically was getting 50% of their bookings, and then she broke her foot. Okay, about 3 months after she had learned my system, she couldn't work for months. Okay, and then when she was working on me after she was back to work, she said, and it was her and 3 other people, and she was doing, I still wanted her by special request, and she says, "Knolly, if it wasn't for you, I'd have lost my house." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You remember when I couldn't work for all these months? I wouldn't have been able to pay my mortgage." And now she has 3 locations. She's got over 50 massage therapists, and she doesn't do any massage therapy at all. So when you think about scaling, you actually, eventually you could work yourself out of a job, which a lot of people would be like, "Man, I don't want to do that." And I get it. But what I always tell my students is let your business get as big as it wants to be. Your business wants to be bigger than you're letting it be, and you're the bottleneck. It's not that anybody else is crimping your growth. You're the bottleneck because you're spending so much time focused on non-income producing activities that you're not growing your business.
Yeah. And what's so powerful about this, Knolly, is that once you get in alignment from that place, and you know what you actually want from your life, and you know what your skill is, then you start operating from a place where money is no longer a problem.
Not at all.
Money is an easy thing that starts coming because you start changing those beliefs. You start seeing the results. You start being able to trust and rely on other people, which is core to a business. And so if you're an employee, the same kind of thought process applies because you're working in a business. You have to be thinking, hey, how do I add value to the company? And by coming at it from this perspective and encouraging and allowing yourself to make those changes in your career, some really big things will happen. I want to get into one topic that you brought up earlier, just because it's something that I'm really into myself. You mentioned an interest or passion about quantum physics. And it's something that most people, when they hear about this stuff, they think, well, hey, how does that apply to life? How does that apply to business?
Oh, man.
And as I've been diving in and understanding about frequency and energy and connecting things in your world and being able to move up the levels, it's totally changed my world. And it's allowed me to attract so much more into my life and be able to live from a place where, I do feel like I'm in much better alignment and I know how to get back there. Talk to me about kind of from your perspective, how has it impacted your life? And why don't you just give us a little definition of what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So quantum physics is don't get afraid of the word. It's really, it's actually very simple. So, quantum physics is the study of matter at the subatomic level. And it's been discovered that when you look at something at a subatomic level, at levels much, much further below atoms, which were at one time thought to be the smallest measure of a particle or solid matter, when you start looking at what's happening in the subatomic level, you start to realize that our world, the physical world that we live, is really just a shadow or a mirror of what's really happening at the subatomic level in all areas. So, for example, your brain, now we're getting crazy here a little bit, but your brain is a receiver, and it's also so it receives information, and it's also a broadcaster. Your brain can broadcast. So just like your Wi-Fi box, we tried to do this interview a week ago, and my Wi-Fi wasn't working. because I live on an island. I live in Puerto Rico, and it was just not working. And what we discovered is that you have the same kind of receptors as what works with Wi-Fi, what works with radio signals, which a lot of people really can't understand, even with electricity. We're electrical beings. We are electric magnetic beings. And so we have a central nervous system that is pretty much all electricity. And the point is that every single thing that you create, or single thing that you look around and see, for example, in front of me, there's a phone, there's my screen, I can see a microphone in front of me, I've got a bottle of water here. Well, all of that existed in the mind of someone first, and then it became, it existed as a thought, and then it became a reality. So everything starts at a level that's subatomic, because when you think about the way your brain works, and by the way, the brain has neuroplasticity, which we didn't even know until about 150 years ago, that the brain could actually change. I remember being in class, and they said, "Don't drink a beer because you're going to kill your brain cells and they'll never grow back." Well, that's not true. Brain cells are growing back all the time, and they're always creating channels and sort of pathways according to what you're telling it. You're programming. We've been programmed since birth, and you're at this point. Once you were no longer programmed, when you went out on your own, you're still being programmed, and you're programming yourself. So the reality, the life that you live, is actually the life that you created at the quantum level. Okay. It's now manifest. So everything that you see around you is what you manifested and what you created. And this is what the most brilliant minds already understood. Nikola Tesla figured this out. Albert Einstein was playing in this realm. And when you look at all the great brilliant minds, they understood and continue to understand that everything happens on the quantum level. So if you can control what's happening in your subconscious, for example, which is at the quantum level, the subconscious actually 95% of the things that you do every day are autonomic in nature. They happen with or without your cooperation. If you think that you're the thinker of your thought, think again. You can sit on a beach and try not to think anything, and thoughts will still come in. Well, who's thinking those thoughts? You might think it's you. Well, there's a program behind you. That we're getting deeper now. I don't want to go too deep on that. But the reality is, if you can tap into the quantum field, you can change everything in your world.
Yeah. And to kind of summarize this is, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, I have no idea what Knolly's talking about, I don't really understand this. Great. That means there's an opportunity for growth and change. And it's just the beginning of something new. But it's not even something that was just newly discovered. It's been discovered for a very long time. There's a great book that I loved that really helped me wrap my head around it, called Becoming Supernatural by Joe
I love
Dispenza.
that. I love that book. It's great.
And his work has been great because he is a scientist.
He's documenting
what's actually happening and the changes, and takes something that is kind of nebulous and seems far off, and allows you to realize that you have a lot more influence over who you are and how you show up, and therefore what you attract into your life. Absolutely. And so from that place, if you're operating from that level, you're able to create the things that Knolly and I are talking about much more easily versus trying to force and push things. So Knolly, how has this impacted your life, or how have you used it personally?
I used it to get my first house. I was 26 years old, and I wanted a 6,000 square foot home. I put down 6,000 to 10,000 square feet. You have to be specific when you're making this imprint, because basically what you're doing is and this is, again, it's weird for, even when I say it, it sounds weird, because it's weird for people that don't understand how the universe works. So the universe works in a way where it's an order taker. So just imagine someone comes over to your table. You're at a restaurant, which is basically what the universe is. It's a restaurant. You walk in and you place your order. Now you're at a restaurant and you sit down. The waiter comes over and says, "Hey, what do you have?" You say, "Well, I'll have, it's kind of one of those days where I'm thinking about a grilled cheese and a tomato soup. That's what I'm going for right now." And then they say, "No problem." They walk away. Wait. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and have that garden salad instead with the salmon. Okay, no problem. I'll change your order. Now they start walking away again. You say, wait, where are you going? Hold on, I'm not done. Scratch that and give me a cheeseburger. Now, if you do this about 3 or 4 times, you know what the waiter's going to say? You know what? When you're ready to order, call me. Okay. And this is what people do every day, Steven. They're like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. And they do it for 2, 3 weeks. And then next week, they want something else. Then and the universe is constantly confused and they don't end up ever really making progress. And the reality is what you want, what you desires you. Okay. What you desires you. And you're constantly attracting that into your realm, but it takes a little bit of time. And so, and by the way, the 2 biggest things that will detract are fear and doubt. Okay. When you start to have fear and you start to manifest doubt, it will automatically cancel, clear, and erase. It's like the delete button on the things that are coming to you. So, I mean, all the great masters taught about this. Obviously, Jesus Christ taught about it as well. You know, you can have whatever you say. If you desire, you can have it. And it goes on and on. All the great teachers taught about it. But it is a power that we have been given as human beings, as Homo sapiens, that we have not tapped into enough. So again, I used it to get this house here. When I was in my first house, I used it. I drew out. It's eerie when you see what I drew as to what my house was going to be with the columns and everything. And what I bought was basically you would have told me I drew it after I bought the house. This house, I drew it when I was in Maui. I was in Maui 7 years ago, and I drew out what my next house was going to be. It's going to have ocean on one side, an ocean view, which I'm looking right now. I can see the ocean. And right behind me, if I look out this window, I can see the mountains. So on the picture, it has ocean on one side, mountains on the other. It has 2 buildings on it. And then it has a lot of different features that are basically this home. And I didn't even realize it, Steven, until I found the picture after we had bought this house here in Puerto Rico, you know? And so that's just kind of the bigger ways. But everything else, I mean, I was in a class one time and the guy says, what's your dream car? I said, I want a 550. I want it to be gray. I want it, and I described all the features of what I wanted. And lo and behold, a few months later, that was my vehicle that was pulling in my driveway. And so but you can become intentional about it. See, we create everything unintentionally anyway. People say, well, I don't believe in that. Well, it doesn't matter if you believe in it. It's what's happening to you already. What you have in your life is what you've created, either through negative thoughts or positive. And you don't even have to believe in it for it to work. It works.
Yeah.
But you can start to channel it and start to utilize it in your favor if you so choose. Hopefully that makes a little more sense.
What I think so powerful about this is that it really takes the mystical and what often people have thought of as the religious, the belief, the prayer, the intention, and it brings a scientific perspective, interpretation to it. Right. And it brings those 2 worlds together. So you can believe whatever you want to believe, but at the same time, it's working whether you believe it or not. Yeah. And what you'll start to notice is the more that you understand this, you more to understand the process of setting that intention and being clear and being direct with what you're looking for and setting one clear order, you'll start to notice the synchronicities. You'll start to notice those things start coming into your life and some beautiful things will happen. Well, Knolly, I'd love to spend a whole episode talking to you about this because I'm very passionate about it. I think it can really change lives as people start to wrap their head around it. But as we wrap up today's episode, I'd love for you to wrap up on this question. What advice would you give to those who are listening, who are looking at being more intentional about the life and business they're creating? How can they go about doing that? And what do you recommend?
The biggest thing I recommend is that you do what we call the work. And a lot of times I don't like hearing that myself. You may not like hearing it. And I've taught it to people without sensitivity. Like, hey, you got to do the work. You got to do crap, man. What are you talking about, man? There's actually a new book out. I don't have it yet, but some of my students are raving over it, called How to Do the Work. But I recommend that you have introspection. You know, it's been said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And the reality, and that was a philosopher that said that. And that's so real. You know, what I would say is do as much as you can There's all these different personality profile tests that you can take, like the DISC profile test, Wealth Dynamics, which is one of my favorite. They're all free. I've got them on my website. There's a new one I've been hearing about it, the Enneagram. I might be saying that wrong, but there's all these different assessments that can help you understand how you're wired. And then I've got one called Discovering Your Divine Destiny, which is a workbook with 121 questions where it basically gets you to understand who you are if you've never done that work. That would be my biggest advice, is to start there, because once you understand who you are, you'll start to behave in the ways that are in alignment with your ultimate greatness. You know, my purpose is to inspire you to become all that God created you to be, so that you can live the life you were meant to live. And when you think about this, Steven, you know, it's been asked, why does a rose bloom? Well, it blooms because it's a rose. That's what roses do. And when you find out who you are, you'll start to bloom in the way that you're supposed to bloom, just naturally. Like, you won't even have to try to do it. A rose doesn't try hard to bloom. It just blooms because that's what it was created to do, just like you were created for that. So yeah, find out who you are, as Steven pointed out in the beginning, and start using the quantum field to your advantage.
Yeah, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. And if you want to learn more about that, highly recommend the book. It's from one of my favorite people on Instagram, the holistic psychologist, Dr. Nicole. Absolutely recommend. Check her out. Dive deeper into yourself. Knolly, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Highly recommend you grab Knolly's new book, the 3 hour day.
Yeah, 3 hours a day, baby. That's it. Yeah.
3 hours a day. And Knolly, look forward to having you on again. Really appreciate you joining us. And thanks for listening. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to watch another, here's one up top. And here's another great video right down below.